Hello there, and welcome to watching VideoGaming Father's video review of a rough beat-em-up game from alternate Soviet reality called Mother Russia Bleeds. Is there any thrilling raw story from the unpleasant times full of violence, manipulation and corruption? Are there interesting main characters that you can play for? Is the game rough as a sandpaper, or will casual players find the right difficulty for them either? Are the game environment and enemies variable enough? And what kind of moves and items will you have for their elimination? Will the game audiovisuals please or rather upset you? And is there any local co-op to make the game real fun for family playing? Just bear with me for the next few minutes to get an honest Mother Russia Blitz video review. So, a game with such a name should definitely have some harsh and maybe also touching story, shouldn't it? Mother Russia Blitz is set in an alternate 1980s Soviet Union ruled by the Russian mafia. This actually does not alter reality so much, does it? Four Russians, Romani, Sergei, Natasha, Ivan and Boris, worked for a man named Mikhail and made money by street fighting in the slums. One day, government forces raid a special operation. Wait a minute, haven't I heard it somewhere in the painful nowadays reality? And kidnapped the four gypsies. The party of four wakes up about a month later in an underground laboratory built under a government prison, where they have been made guinea pigs for the testing of an addictive drug called Necro. They break out of their cell and escape the laboratory, killing all scientists and security in their way, while suffering increasingly intense hallucinations due to the Necro. But it also has some positive effects on them. Well, don't get me wrong, stayed out of drugs, kids, which give themselves monstrous strength. The story is really rough, as the Soviet life was, and it's worth watching. It's mostly presented by the in-game cutscenes and text dialogues and could be even used in some B-grade movie. The only thing I was missing were dub dialogues, which would make the game atmosphere even denser. Okay, the story is not bad, but the gameplay is the most important part of the game, so let's have a look at it now. The game starts with the choice of your character. You can choose from four characters in the beginning, where each of them is defined by force, speed, range and jump. What is less traditional is the choice of drug that your character will be using. In the start of the game there is just one type of drug called Kremlin Colonel, steady and balanced. I will be talking about drugs a little bit later here. The first level is virtually a kind of tutorial where you learn basic moves by fighting homeless men in the slums. Then you will learn to walk up, down, left, right, and also to jump, punch, kick, dash, and throw your enemies. You can also combine the moves to do the flying elbow or a flying kick. So you beat a bunch of poor guys, and then the game tests your skills in the arena where you will be highly outnumbered. This actually prepares you for the situations that you will be facing most of the game, as your hero is usually fighting against four or more enemies at the same time. This makes the game rather difficult, but luckily you've got some helpers that make you the ultimate killing weapon. What are they? The first of them are the interactive objects that can be used to smash, bash, cut or even shoot your enemies. There are really plenty of them in the game, from environmental ones like bricks, pipes, chairs or even toilet bowls, to the melee weapons like knives, baseball bats, police batons and so on. From time to time you even find a gun that can kill a common enemy by one shot. Using these items feels really good and definitely enhances the game. But what makes you a weapon of mass destruction is quite a controversial part of the game: using drugs. As your character is kind of guinea pig, the subject of terrible experiments run by the twisted Soviet scientists, it becomes drug addicted. You have 3 doses of a chosen drug that make you faster and stronger, and everyone who stays in your way once you have taken the dose is virtually dead. Unfortunately, this effect lasts only a few seconds. The game is actually based on the use of drugs, which makes it really controversial. Each of your enemies has the essence of the drug in his body, so you refill your syringe by extracting it from the shaking bodies of eliminated enemies. But you need to do it quickly before the body stops shaking, which is not easy sometimes once you are in the middle of a tough fight. From time to time you also get a body that helps you fight against the enemies. Is it worth to keep him alive, as the focus on the enemies is spread between you and him? And how do you do it? with the help of drugs of course. Once he gets eliminated, he also lies on the floor shaking, but if you have at least one dose of your drug, you can use it to make him live again. In general, you need to use the drug wisely, mostly in critical situations, and you need to refill it on a regular basis, as your success is usually tied to it. I actually hate drugs and would not encourage anyone to take them, but I must admit that the drug mechanics brings a new and entertaining elements into the game and enhances the gameplay. What kind of enemies will you be facing and in what environment? Your first opponents recruit from poor homeless men living in slums and simply fighting to survive. Once you find yourself in the lab, you will be fighting against the mad scientists dressed in anti-hazard suits, security members, and the results of lab-terrible experiments, various zombies. In the prison you will stand against the criminals of various types, policemen, and even heavily armed members of special units. Then there are zombified prostitutes, and their pimps in the stylish sportswear. And there are also members of fauna, police dogs, rats, and pigs. The real ones, not just the people reminding them, in the sewers. At the end of each level there is a boss fight with the opponent that endures much more hits than the common bad guys, and especially there you will find the use for your booster. Which is fair enough, as they are the results of some terrible experiments for sure. As for the environment, there is a basic camp, lab, sewers under the lab, prison, the squad, and there are supposed to be, for example, the train, the club, or the arena. In general, I would say that neither enemies nor environment are super variable, but are variable enough not to make you bored soon. Now let's have a look at the difficulty and controls. Mother Russia Blitz is a rather difficult game, as life was in the Soviet era, and in the present Russia as well, I would say. You are very often heavily outnumbered by the enemies. You can endure quite a lot of punches and kicks, but your opponents do not hesitate to use the items and weapons against you, and 2 or 3 flasks with the dangerous chemicals thrown at you by the scientists can easily reduce your health bar to 0, so you need to act quickly and wisely. Luckily, the invisible checkpoints are close to each other, so you do not need to repeat the same long sequences again and again, and there is neither limit for continues, nor any time limit, so if you have ever played some beat-em-up game, I'm sure that sooner or later you will find a way from any unpleasant situation. And you can still choose from 4 characters with different statistics, so you can select one whose style suits you the best. As for the controls, I have played the game on the Xbox controller, and I must say that most of the time I was okay, and my character reacted quickly and precisely to my commands. The only problem I had was to remember all these button combinations to do some complex moves, but this is rather my personal issue. From time to time I also had a problem to get to the right angle with the opponent to hit him, but it's more or less a problem of all side-scrolling beat-em-up games. In general, the game difficulty or controls are not something that would spoil your game experience. Game audio visuals are just great. It's true that the game graphics are classic pixel art, but very detailed one, full of colors, nice animations and moving objects in the background. Also, the blood effects are disturbingly realistic. And so are the effects when your hero has used drugs. The game graphics reminded me of the most beautiful pixelated games from the middle of the 90s. The music is dynamic and dark and perfectly fits the game. It also reacts to the actual events. After the drugs used, it gets even faster. Sounds are also very good, punches and kicks really sound like punches and kicks, and also the hits by various melee weapons sounds quite authentic. The only complaint I have got is traditionally the absence of dubbing, because a few badass one-liners would really improve the game atmosphere. So, is Mother Russia Blitz the game that is worth your money and attention? There are many pros in it: disturbing story, number of possible attacks, character selection, number of weapons, the drugs using mechanics, variety of enemies and environments, responsive controls, challenging and not frustrating difficulty, beautiful graphics, dynamic music and realistic sounds. What are the downsides? The explicit violence and drug using to make the game inappropriate for kids, the absence of character development and also the absence of dubbing. There is also local co-op multiplayer, which for sure makes the game even more entertaining if you find the right person to play with, as this is the kind of game that your kids should really stay out of. Mother Russia Blitz costs €15 on Steam, as although the price is quite high, it's adequate for what the game offers. especially with the possibility to play already unlocked levels in co-op, and there is also arena mode that pits the player off against the wave of endless enemies who gets faster and larger of numbers every way. Mother Russia Blitz is rough and unpleasant as life in Soviet Russia was, at least for most of the people, but it's also funny and addictive, and not because of drug usage, and the game itself does not have many cons. Although it is not a game suitable for family playing, it's still a good game for fellow gaming fathers and their adult friends, and I'm therefore giving it thumbs up, and Video Gaming Father's index 8 plus out of 10. Recommended. Thank you for spending your time with my video review. If you have enjoyed it, please do not forget about giving it thumb up and subscribing to my Video Gaming Father's channel to stay posted about my new video reviews. See you soon!